Hey guys, welcome to the Melt with Princess. Thank you so much for joining me today. There's so much to get into. In the last video, we got all into Karina Sholiak's mess with Jeffrey Epstein, and honestly, that entire situation remains to be determined because Karina Sholiak is still a free woman, even though she was a major chess piece in Jeffrey Epstein's empire. So we'll see what comes out of that, because so much has been going on, even to this day, still with Jeffrey Epstein. So many depositions are underway, including depositions with prison guards that were on watch the night that Jeffrey Epstein self-exited. But literally just the other day, one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims and co-conspirators just came out and spoke up in a deposition about her experience with Jeffrey Epstein and exactly what role she played in his empire and in aiding and abetting this insane criminal.
Well, this is a witness that was a personal assistant to Mr. Epstein. She was also a victim of Mr. Epstein. So we're bringing her in. We have a lot of questions about everything from the day-to-day activities to what she saw and what she knows, and hopefully it'll help us as we proceed in the investigation.
Sarah Kellen, who was Jeffrey Epstein's longtime assistant, just came out and spoke up in a deposition. And this is breaking news. This is major because this is a person that was actually named as a co-conspirator back in 2008 when Jeffrey Epstein signed that plea deal. Well, in that deal, there were 4 co-conspirators that were also named and were protected under this plea deal. They were not going to be able to be tried or put under any type of scrutiny for these crimes because Jeffrey Epstein and Alexander Acosta, Florida's district attorney at the time, they made sure that Jeffrey Epstein was going to be protected, and so were his co-conspirators. And at the time, he had 4 known named ones. We already got all into Karina Sholiak. We went deep into her business and her ties to Epstein, where she came from, how she got here, the whole 9 yards. We really covered as much as I possibly could, and there was a lot. And honestly, there still remains so much to uncover because she hasn't publicly spoken out about her time with Jeffrey Epstein the way Sarah now has. So I'm honestly just still waiting for the day that Karina Sholiak sits down and does the same thing that Sarah Kellen just did and gives the deposition and lets us know exactly what the inner workings of his operations look like. Because it's my opinion that she probably has way more knowledge than Sarah Kellen ever could. I believe that Karina Sholiak is Ghislaine Maxwell 2.0. Like a literal copy and paste, a clone, you name it. She's literally the embodiment of Ghislaine Maxwell, just in a younger, more Epstein-curated version. So, boy, are there so many more questions that are to be determined and answers that must come from this woman. But when, that is what we still don't know, and I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later, because as Sarah Kellen just so bravely did, I believe that Karina Sholiak should absolutely be next. In this explosive closed-door briefing with the House Committee Oversight, she gave new names that had not been mentioned before, but names that can be corroborated with the Epstein files. Let's not forget that so much of the Epstein files, 1, have not been released, and 2, what has been released has been heavily redacted. And not just for the protection of the victims like it should have been, like literally the law states just protect the victim's identity, but everything else like must be public, right? But no, unfortunately, that's not the case. It's not just the victims' names and identities that are being redacted and protected. No, it's also culprits. It's also the enablers and all of these people that were aiding and abetting and protecting Epstein. These people are also being protected by our United States government because their names are being redacted, their emails are being redacted, their information is taken off the chessboard. We don't know who these people are. We don't know all of the people who are mentioned, who are seen communicating with Jeffrey Epstein, coordinating girls being transported, things being done to make these girls look a certain type of way because Jeffrey Epstein wanted to make them look as young as possible. Let's not forget that these girls were like trophies to Jeffrey Epstein. He would literally parade them around. Wherever he went, he had his his assistants, aka his trafficked, kidnapped victims, pretty much, and he would traffic them and he would parade them around like it was some sort of a big joke, and like certain people weren't in on it, and everyone else could just believe that they were his assistants for all he cared. He really didn't care. They were clearly very visibly young and not really probably experienced to be a billionaire's assistant, but there they were, his assistants, which he always had more than one because he was just that busy. And these young girls were just so equipped to do so much for him, right? But anyway, he literally took these girls' assistants everywhere that he went with him, so people could openly see how young they were and knew who he was hanging around with. Not just that, but like I mentioned, he loved to keep these girls looking as young as possible, so he would take them to get fresh haircuts and to get waxed and all these types of things. So he was taking them to spas frequently, and these girls were seen by individuals that would see Jeffrey Epstein with all of these girls coming in and out, in and out, in and out, and they would do things for these girls. They would cut the girls' hairs, wax them, all this type of stuff, all under the table, all hush hush. Meaning there were so many people involved in his operation from the top to the bottom, just from simple things like someone grooming the girls, like actually physically like grooming their hair. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein was all into that already, but he literally had people coming in and cutting the girls' hairs and waxing them. He would take them to spas. Not him even, like Ghislaine Maxwell was responsible for some of this, and Karina Sholiak was then responsible for this, like taking the girls to different spas and places to make sure that they looked pristine and as young as possible, because that's what Jeffrey Epstein was known for. He wanted to be able to traffic the highest caliber of young women. So he had them polished and primed like if he literally worked for some type of factory and these girls were just parts for his big machine that he just needed to be cleaned for a moment so that they could go on and do their job. He is really a sick individual who meticulously planned and thought out every detail of his operation, from the presentation to the logistics to the execution. And he didn't do it alone. He did it with Karina Sholiak's help, with Ghislaine Maxwell's help, with Donald Trump, Bill Gates. Oh my God, if I sat here and went through the list of people who aided and abetted Epstein, I think I would be here for a few years. It's that long and twisted. And it just keeps getting longer. Like I mentioned, Sarah Kellen just came out in this deposition and she's mentioning new names. Some of Sarah Kellen's description includes a lot of what we've already heard from other victims. Again, his MO is the same. He doesn't really switch it up for different people. Not often. That's why when we see something like what happened with Karina Sholiak happened, where he took such an intense liking and ownership of her, like that stands out because he dealt with hundreds, if not thousands of young women on a daily basis. So the fact that he really picked one out of the patch and stuck with her for 10 years, that is a big deal, and that does stand out. Because for the most part, his MO is pretty straightforward, which is pretty much what happened with Sarah Kellen. But again, like Karina Sholiak, this is just one of the girls that he pulled in a tiny bit closer and made her do things that she never thought that she would be physically able to do. And for whatever reason, personal reasons, we'll never know, I guess, unless she tells us exactly, but for her own personal reasons, and I'm assuming struggles. Unfortunately, there's so much struggle and need in the world right now that it is way too easy for people of power and with money to try and influence other people who are in the same lifestyle, to influence them to do whatever these people want them to do. It's literally way too easy. Society today is so wrong for that because money sometimes talks louder than actions. And even though you could see that a person is so awful and terrible, unfortunately, there are so many who will put that to the side and just go with it, just to benefit their own pockets and to line their wallets and to advance themselves in their career or their goals and objectives. People will seriously put others' safety to the side and just do whatever they have to do in order to get by themselves. And that is a societal problem. Like, I just hate that there is such need for young teenage girls and boys. Just, it's so horrible that there's such a great need for children to need to make money in this society to help their families, and not because they want to, but because there is literally such a great need that families aren't able to get by on one salary or even two salaries. And it forces young children into the workforce, and that enables them to be in a place where they can unfortunately be abused or taken advantage of because they are young. They're still too young to be in the workforce. They're still too young to be making decisions all by themselves and surrounded by adults that don't necessarily have the best interest in their heart for these kids, or sometimes are even literal predators out here looking for young, unexpected victims like Epstein did. And that is, again, just such a societal problem that needs to be addressed, because if there wasn't such a great need for teenage girls and boys to go out there and find money, then maybe men like Epstein couldn't control them by using their money, couldn't entice them by using his money in order to abuse them and get his way with children. And so, unfortunately, this young teenage girl found herself in a place of need. And because of this need, she went to Epstein's house and was abused by him multiple times in the guise of she's just going to give a massage and she's just going to get some money. And yeah, it might be sexual, but she's a young child. She's a teenager. She doesn't understand that. She doesn't fully comprehend the extent of what type of mental damage that could do to a person and how her brain is going to reason and accept and process all of these situations 30 years from now, 20 years from now, 10 years from now. Like, you don't know. She doesn't know. And it's so different for everybody how your brain processes trauma. So there really truly is no way to know. And at the moment when you are a teenager and you're making a choice like this, you don't always necessarily think of your future or 10 years from now, how you're going to feel reflecting back on this choice. Like, that's not something that necessarily goes through a teenager's head when they're about to make a choice. Hence why they're children and, teenagers, and they're not mature yet and they're not like ready for the real world. They're still kids. They're not adults. That's why, because their brain hasn't fully developed yet. People can easily take advantage of them and manipulate them and sway them. And especially if there is such a great need where it's like your family's struggling, you're struggling, your brothers and sisters, your mother, your father, your grandma or grandpa, your family, your friends, people around you. They're struggling. They can't put food on the table. They can't put a roof over their head. They might be on the verge of eviction. You don't know their life situation. There might be health problems that are hard to deal with. Someone can't afford their medicine or their medical supplies to survive, to live. So maybe these kids are in this tough position where they're forced to go out there and work. And maybe they feel forced to do these things just to get money, just to help, just to get by and live. And these adults, they know with their fully developed brain, even though honestly, like, is it actually developed? Because what are you doing abusing children? But with their supposedly fully developed brain that they are supposed to be using, they're using it, but to hurt children, to manipulate children, and to get their way, despite the children's safety and their concerns and happiness. Like, these adults don't care about kids. They don't care about anyone else besides themselves and their sick and twisted needs and wants. So no one is out here protecting your kids or caring about your kids except for you, yourself, the parents. And again, sometimes parents are either overworked, exhausted, maybe they're not even there, maybe they've passed, maybe they're sick. There are so many situations where these children are left on their own terms to really figure out the world by themselves and to get by themselves. And unfortunately, again, societal problems that we are facing here, and it is devastating. The Sarah Kellen deposition happened in May 2026. Chairman James Comer said that this was one of the most substantive interviews and depositions that have been given to date on the Epstein files.
Of all the interviews we've done, this is going to be the toughest one.
And it's really substantive because in this testimony, Kellen provided 3 undisclosed names. And by undisclosed, I mean, again, you can find these names in the Epstein files if our government would allow you to. But Sarah Kellen wasn't afraid, and she named the names of the people who abused her, of the people who we could see in the Epstein files has full and total connection with Epstein, but were hidden from us by our government. For what reason? That's the question. That is really truly the question. Why are these perpetrators being protected and shielded from us, from the public, when we should know when criminal charges should be brought up against these people? Specifically the ones who were actively operating his business and managing it and making sure that it stayed alive and focused in its operations. All of the people who knew that he was actively trafficking women and who were coordinating his abuse, those people need to be held accountable. Kellen alleged that not just Epstein abused her, but of course she was trafficked to other men, and these specific men were 3 men who had previously been unknown to us. But these men were crucial in maintaining Jeffrey Epstein's operations alive. When you look at the Epstein files, you can see that there are some big names, some very well-known names. And like I mentioned, some people were crucial in maintaining this man's operations. Epstein needed the help of so many people because he was very detail-oriented. He wanted everything to be right. He was concerned with their body hair and the hair on top of their head. He wanted everything to be perfect. Epstein's assistants in charge of managing the young girls, they're seen all over the Epstein files going back and forth with Epstein about where he's taking the girls to get their hair cut, who's seeing them, how they're feeling, how they're looking, everything. He wanted to be involved in the entire operation. He really was hands-on. And again, it was just so clear to see how young these girls were. So if there is a man who's constantly cutting like a different young girl's hair every day, and this girl is involved with Epstein, and it's always, again, a new one, always a new girl, and he's cutting her hair, making them all look the same. You think that he would have some questions, right? You think he'd be like, well, who are these girls? You know, where are they going? What are they doing? Why is there a new one all the time? There's gonna be questions. But the questions didn't matter because apparently this dude, this hairstylist, was also involved with the operations and benefited from the trafficking operations. He had dipped his toe in there once or twice. And I am talking about Frederick Fekkai. He is a stylist to the stars. He's a very well-known hairstylist, and he's also being accused by Sarah Kellen as an abuser, as someone who violated her. This is a big deal because how could he possibly stay quiet for all of these years knowing what Epstein was doing and knowing his role in Epstein's crimes? Like, at no point did he find it essential or necessary to come out and say, hey guys, yeah, I cut some girls' hairs for Epstein, but I didn't know or I wasn't aware. Like, something, anything, even if it's a lie, like at least show some type of accountability, some type of responsibility, like stand up for what you did, like say something. I totally believe Sarah Kellen in this situation because if you were involved with Epstein for all of those years, cutting girls' hairs for him, and now you're literally being accused of abuse, why wouldn't you come out and say something? Why wouldn't you come out and say something even before? Like, if you're really innocent and you found yourself so heavily involved with Epstein, I would figure that you would want to come out and say something, distance yourself, at least put some type of separation between you and Epstein, or explain like why there was a connection there, what the connection was about. Tell your side, tell your story. But no, he stayed really quiet throughout the whole entire thing. And well, now I see why. It's because he was possibly abusing victims with Epstein. So not just was this man cutting girls' hairs for Epstein, but he was also partaking in the operation. So of course he wasn't questioning it, or he wasn't going to call authorities on a tip like, hey, I've got this like older man here and he keeps sending like young girls after another, and they're like really young. And I don't know why their hair is being cut, and I don't know why they're getting Brazilian waxes and things. Like, these are young girls. What's happening here? There was no mention of anything strange or suspicious. No nefarious activities were reported. Nothing, not a peep. He said not a word. Why is that, right? That's a big, big question. What's your reason behind staying so silent after seeing Jeffrey Epstein's victims right in front of you, being there, holding them, touching them, being able to save them, help them, call for some assistance? No, nothing. Why? Maybe because literally you are part of the abuse. You are an abuser. You are doing exactly what you wanted to be doing, helping and assisting this operation so that it can continue, so that you can continue benefiting from it. Because, of course, you're literally getting paid to cut a steady stream of customers for yourself. So you have a steady stream of customers, even though they are literally victims of crimes and need help. No. It's for you, it's all business, right? For you, it's all about money, right? You're getting a steady stream of customers to cut hair. You're good, you're happy. Oh, and on top of that, you also get to abuse them too. Good God, like, this dude has it set for him, right? He's totally fine. This is so terrible. And the way that Jeffrey Epstein just knows everyone's kinks and quirks and how to push what button, like, he really does feel like he can just manipulate anybody. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, he will weasel his way into your brain, figure out your wants and needs, and toy with you and like play with you and be like, here, you want this? We'll do this. Oh, you want this? We'll do that. He's just literally taking advantage of everyone else's sick and twisted intentions and wants, because like that's what he's profiting off of. He's profiting off of sick people who have these dark and twisted wants. Because if there wasn't a demand for these young girls, there wouldn't be young girls. I think overall, Jeffrey Epstein is a businessman, and overall, he really just wanted to make money, and a lot of it. And for whatever horrific reason, this is where he found himself making the most money. And think about that for a second. He's making more money trafficking people, trafficking young girls, than anything else that he was doing, than any other real estate business he was doing, or any other CEO position or professor position. Anything else that he was doing wasn't enough for him. He had to do this business. He had to traffic young girls in order to make money, because that's what he kept doing and kept doing and kept doing it. And not just do I believe that he is mentally ill and has a sick obsession with young girls, absolutely, and control, and he's very manipulative. Yeah, absolutely. All those things I believe are true. But I also believe that he was just so money hungry, and this is what he found himself making the most money in. So that's why he never stopped. That's why he continued even after being caught and imprisoned. He just kept it going, kept evolving it. Now it's a med spa for people around the world. Like, you're not a world-class med spa, Epstein. Chill, stop. He's not. But he was pretending to be, like, because that's what was making him the money. Not the med spa, the human trafficking of it all. So he couldn't just stop doing what was making him the most, what was giving him the most profit. He couldn't just willy-nilly quit that. He had to evolve it and change it and make sure that his operation was foolproof. And to be honest with you, there are no new charges being brought up against him after 2008. So maybe he did something right there. Maybe he did something right in hiding his operations a lot better than whatever the heck he was doing before. Because where are the new charges? Where are the charges for him trafficking victims from 2008 all the way to 2019? Where are those charges? Because I don't see them, and I want to see them because they exist. He was still trafficking women. Where are the charges? Why is Karina Sholiak not being charged? Because she did just as much as Maxwell did for Epstein. Between the years of 2009 and 2019, Sholiak was managing operations. Sholiak was overseeing young girls being trafficked. Sholiak was managing their day-to-day life. Sholiak was controlling their phones, who they could call, who they could text, when they can call, when they can you cannot. She would tell them. It was a house rule. Girls couldn't have the phones in the Manhattan mansion, in the West Palm Beach mansion, and the Texas Zorro Ranch. Like, they couldn't have their phones with them. Their phones had to be left at the door. Their phones had to be left in a safe. They couldn't have their phones. It was only when Sholiak would allow them to have their phones when they could have their phones. It was only when Sholiak would take them to get a haircut that they could get a haircut. It was only when Sholiak would take them here, there, everywhere. They had full and total control and autonomy of these women. So whatever they were doing to hide this operation and manage it more efficiently was working and has worked so far, because no new crimes have been put on them. No new crimes have been charged with these specific crimes that we are seeing here from 2008 to 2019. We're not seeing anything happening with these crimes. They're just kind of like stalling. They're just there. And that is just so strange to me. So I really don't understand that entire part of it, because where are these recent charges? There are none. They don't exist. But his operation was fully operational even after he was let out of jail. So what's going on? Sarah Kellen also mentioned the former mayor of Miami Beach as one of her abusers. Former Miami Beach Mayor Philip Levine has also been named by Sarah Kellen as an abuser. She states that she was trafficked to him by Epstein. She also mentioned that she was trafficked to the late fashion photographer Patrick DeMarchelier. Sarah Kellen was involved with Jeffrey Epstein for over a decade, and she was there around the same time when Ghislaine Maxwell was running the operation. Kellen stated that Maxwell was very involved with the controlling of Kellen. Maxwell was directly coordinating Kellen's abuse, and Kellen even said that it was Maxwell that turned Epstein into the monster that he was. Kellen also said that she had no idea that she was involved or named in the non-prosecution agreement that Epstein was able to obtain from Florida. In one of my previous videos, I dived deep into this non-prosecution agreement that Jeffrey Epstein was able to obtain from the state of Florida. In this agreement, it was stated that he wasn't going to be able to be federally prosecuted for any of his crimes, and not just him was protected in this deal. 4 co-conspirators were also named in this deal, and they were going to be receiving pretty much the same deal that Epstein got, except for the jail time. Because in this plea deal, Epstein was going to get 18 months in jail, and as we know, it wasn't an ordinary 18 full months in jail. He had a work release program, meaning that he got to just go to jail to sleep there at night and then go on with his day-to-day schedule and continue his operations as planned. Nothing really out of the ordinary, except for the fact that he had to be driven to the jailhouse at night to go to sleep. That's really all. And then in the morning when he woke up, he would be taken from jail. He would be picked up from his jail cell and taken somewhere else. It was kind of like a vacation for him. I would assume he was actually less stressed doing all of this, because he had to probably manage a lot less operations. He probably left more things to other girls, other young assistants that he had. He probably was like, oh, you know what? Cool. I could do this because I have so many girls that could handle this operation for me. I've trained them well. I'm good. But I could pop in every now and then and say, howdy do, right? Because I have this amazing deal that the state of Florida has just gifted me for being such an outstanding citizen, right? Like, I could still go ahead and manage my operation because the mayor of Miami Beach, he just loves my operation so much. And the district attorney, Alexander Acosta, he also just loves my operation so much. Like, they want to give me such leniency so that I can continue my operation, because it's just that amazing for everybody involved, right? Like, what do you mean? Of course, the former mayor of Miami Beach, Philip Levine, wants Jeffrey Epstein to continue his operations. Of course, all of our amazing people here holding a state position and a place in our government, of course, they want Epstein to continue his business. Why wouldn't they? If they are physically profiting from it, and if their wallet is also profiting from it, why would they ever want him to stop his operation? Why would they ever send him to jail and make him actually stay in jail, where he couldn't do anything to make them money, where he couldn't acquire any girls for these sick, nasty men? Like, why would they just do that to him? That's like shooting themselves in the foot. Why would they shoot themselves in the foot? They literally wouldn't do that. They tried so hard not to do that. That's why they tried to save face by sending him to jail, but also like work release, so you're not technically in jail all the time. Because, I mean, we still need to handle business, Epstein, you know what I'm saying? It's so sick. It's so crazy. It's absolutely my opinion that everyone gave Epstein the deal that they wanted for him, that would be best for him, aka themselves, because they were so involved in his operation. Well, Sarah Kellen just let everyone know that she knew nothing about this plea deal agreement, and she had no clue she was mentioned in it or was protected or was a co-conspirator under the law. But she just kind of found out about it, and she says that it's her opinion that he probably mentioned her or added her to this co-conspirator list just so that she wouldn't speak out about him, because she did get close to Epstein and she did help him acquire girls and manage the girls' schedules. So she was a co-conspirator, and it's her opinion that Epstein wanted her to say nothing to no one. So he added her to this plea deal agreement so that he could come back to her and say, hey, guess what? You're clear. You're good. Go ahead, be free, fly, my little grown-up bird now that I really have no use for, and go on with your life, right? But don't say anything, because you're protected and I'm protecting you. And if you say something, then I can't protect you, right? That was his ploy. That's what she thinks anyways, and that's what she's saying. And thank God that she's able to speak out and say what she's saying today and tell the world the names of the people who abused her, because that takes so much bravery. That takes so much strength to put yourself out in public and tell people what you experienced at the hands of this notorious criminal and at the hands of people who are still alive and not behind jail and not behind cells. They are still alive and well and flourishing, and they are very public, and they are completely responsible for her abuse, and they have been able to go on with their lives as if they're not. And that is a problem. And I am so happy and thankful that she's able to come out and speak out and tell her side of the story and tell her side of the abuse that she faced under Jeffrey Epstein's operation. I truly hope God protects her and protects every other victim and people who are out there who want to speak out. I hope all the victims are able to speak out and are able to name their abusers and can actually see some justice happening. That's the ultimate goal of speaking out, is for these people responsible for the crimes to be held to some justice, to be given the time, to be investigated and questioned for the role that they played in these crimes. And when the evidence proves the victims right, we need to see the arrests happening. We need to see these sentences take place. We need to see these people in jail for years, for their life. If it requires that type of sentence, then we need to see it happen, because we have to have some type of standard for our society that this doesn't slide. This isn't allowed. You can't do this and continue on like nothing ever happened. Literally look at what they do in China for people who abuse children. There are other countries out there that are taking this more seriously, that are taking child abuse a lot more seriously than the United States is. And that is a huge problem to me, because we're supposed to be progressive and we're supposed to be setting the example, right? Like, I want to be setting the example in child protection cases. Please? Like, that would be a really nice thing to be ahead of the curve with, right? So it's my wish that we as a country, as a society, are able to do better for these victims. I'm feeling very positive seeing more and more people speaking out and sitting down for these depositions and going all in, speaking about the abusers and the crimes that took place while they were there and what they saw while they were there under Epstein's roof. The psychological effects of being groomed and abused as a child follow people for the rest of their lives, and this is something that Sarah Kellen is dealing with firsthand. While she is still going through therapy for the abuse that she faced to try to reason and deal with the hurt and pain that she has in her heart, she's also dealing with the memories and trauma that she had to endure under Epstein's hand and Maxwell's hand. She said about Epstein that she was trapped inside his world and that he groomed me sexually and psychologically, abused me, controlled me, manipulated me, dominated me, and gaslit me until I could no longer tell which thoughts were mine and which were his. Kellen said that ever since the non-prosecution plea deal agreement was made public, she has received nonstop hate and harassment online. And she says that this is because even though she was a victim of Epstein, it eventually unraveled to be more than that. She eventually ended up assisting him in his operation. She would manage the young girls' schedules. She would even pick them up from homes and drive them all the way to Epstein's mansion to drop them off. And this is because the young girls were too young to drive themselves. So she was literally chauffeuring the girls. She was managing their schedules. She would call them up, ask them if they were free to come hang out or visit Epstein. She was literally just used as a way to get more girls to Epstein and a way to get more girls around town so that they could be abused by different men. Kellen said that she has read online people saying that she was Ghislaine Maxwell's lieutenant, and she says that that is a gross misinterpretation of her situation. She says that she felt like she was an actual slave. Like literally, she said she was a literal indentured slave to Ghislaine Maxwell, and that Maxwell would even affirm that by calling her her slave and her minion. So it wasn't hard to see that they both knew the role and the dynamic of the relationship. Kellen felt as if she had zero power, no authority whatsoever, and the only reason that she existed was to simply serve and to submit to Epstein and Maxwell and whoever else they needed her to submit to. The House Committee Oversight Chairman, James Comer, said that this is going to be one of the hardest interviews to date, and they have already received testimony from a few notable figures, including President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, billionaire Lex Wexner, and Ted Waite, who was Maxwell's ex-boyfriend.
It appears to me the Department of Justice considered her, not necessarily a co-conspirator, but rather, I don't want to say whistleblower, but someone that aided in the prosecution of Epstein. So we've just got a lot of questions about that. I know how the Department of Justice viewed her. I don't know how the Oversight Committee will view her. We're obviously, she's presumed innocent. She's going to have due process, and I appreciate her being here today. And we certainly, but again, it's going to be hard because, there's some that believe she was, 100% a victim or survivor, and then there's some that think she was a victim and victimizer. So it's just a terrible scenario. I've read her story, I've read her opening statement, and I know that this is going to be a tough one for us.
Sarah Kellen met Jeffrey Epstein in early 2000 when one of her male friends came up to her and said, "Hey, I know this guy and he's scouting for Victoria's Secret. I could get you in with him and you could have a meeting, and he is an awesome agent. Like, he could actually get you on the runway for Victoria's Secret." Like, this was such a big deal. Like, Victoria's Secret is huge. It's just so scary to think that an abuser, like such a scary predator, could use a company that is so huge, so credible, to lure girls in. And he's not even wrong. Like, he was actually connected to Victoria's Secret. He literally did work for them. Epstein literally had signed control over Victoria's Secret and all of Lex Wexner's finances and businesses and properties and real estate. Everything that was Lex Wexner, Jeffrey Epstein had control of. Meaning that when Jeffrey Epstein was saying that he was a talent scout for Victoria's Secret, as messed up as that sounds, like, yeah, I want to curse, but I'm trying to keep it PG. But anyways, as messed up as that sounds, Like, yeah, he wasn't wrong. It was true. He really was connected to Victoria's Secret. And if he wanted to, could probably put her on the runway, no problems, no questions asked. So it just sucks. And it's so extremely scary to me that such a huge company, such a credible company, could really be connected to a man, a predator that will go out there and use said company to lure his victims in. And it's just, there's nothing that anyone could do about it. Because the people who were supposed to protect us from this type of situation from happening were just laying down and enjoying the situation. We're just literally benefiting from this situation. The same people that are there to protect us from Epstein were bringing him up and pushing him to the forefront and putting him right in front of our faces so that he can abuse girls and women and, well, and help these other men so that they could do the same thing. Because maybe these other men weren't as charismatic or as friendly or personable as Epstein was, so there was no way that they could ever do this on their own. But with Epstein's personality, charisma, his charm, with his Ted Bundy vibe, he was literally luring in all of these people. And so, like, he was doing God's work for these people because there was no way some of these men could ever have the personality or charm to get away with these crimes. Because, boy, did they use Epstein. They put him in the line of fire. They told him, take all the shots. Because to this day, he is shielding everyone. Even in his death, he is shielding everyone. So yeah, when this guy came up to Sarah Kellen and said, yo, I have this dude, he's a talent agent, he's scouting, you could be Victoria's Secret's next top model, right? She was so hype. At that time, Kellen was 21 years old. She had just recently been divorced, so she was looking for her next big opportunity in life, her next path, and what role she was going to take. She was young, she was starting her life over, and she had many paths that she could have gone down. And this man taking her down this path really just set her off in the worst direction possible. Kellen was already struggling after her divorce because, well, she was in a cult. She was part of a religious cult within her marriage, and after leaving this marriage, she was excommunicated. So she was isolated, alone, didn't have friends or family to rely on. So Epstein, of course, swooped right in because this is the type of vulnerability that he relies on, that he thrives on. This is what he needs to survive. This is what goes back to my previous point of if we just didn't have such a dire need in this country just for people to survive, for people to have a community, to have support, to have healthcare and education, if those things weren't such a struggle in this country, then perhaps Sarah Kellen would not have had to go down that path with Epstein. It was due to this dire need that she had that she found herself in a room with Epstein being abused by him for money. And it was because of that same vulnerability that Jeffrey Epstein managed to continue to get her to keep coming back, and he managed to continue to keep her in his reins, then managing her and ordering her to serve him and Maxwell and manage his operation. And it was because of this need that she had and this vulnerability that Jeffrey Epstein was able to exploit her and really manipulate her and use her and bend her to his will. And because she's talking about it and explaining really the steps that he took to manipulate her, we can see that he really just is a one-hit wonder. He just knows one note, and that is to use people and use people and use people and just get away with it as far as he possibly physically can. But it wasn't just Epstein that had control over Kellen. It wasn't just Epstein who was manipulating her and treating her like a slave, but it was also Maxwell. Maxwell was right there next to him, completely organizing and dictating things just as much as he was. And was she in love with Epstein, or did she just do this because she wanted money from him? Is that the reason that she continued on with this relationship and this operation with Epstein for so many years? Could it be just because of money, or was Maxwell in love with Epstein? To me, it's my opinion that she was in love with Epstein. I think she was obsessed with Epstein. She wanted to marry him. Literally, there are emails that we can see in the Epstein files where she is talking to people saying, "Hey, I am thinking about marriage with Epstein. What could I do? What could I read? Can you please suggest some books to me? Suggest some type of reading material so that I can be more knowledgeable. I could be more intelligent, so he could look at me differently, so he could fall in love with me, so that I could be his wife." Like, she wanted to set herself up to be the person that Jeffrey Epstein wanted. And I guess he wanted an intelligent person, a knowledgeable person. And she felt, for some reason, that that wasn't her. She felt that maybe that's what she was lacking. Maybe that's why Epstein's not marrying me. I'm not smart enough. I'm not an intellect. I see him and he loves professors. He loves scientists. He loves politicians. And what do they have in common? Brains. Well, maybe I don't know about politicians, but the scientists and researchers and doctors and professors that Epstein was involved with, I mean, they definitely were educated. So maybe, in Maxwell's eyes, maybe that's what I need. She thought that she just needed some intelligence, a little more intellect. Like, let me just read a few books here and there, like reference this statement, reference this quote that I read, and maybe he'll like me more and want to marry me because I'll finally be smart enough. Anyway, that was her thought. She hoped that someday Epstein would finally marry her because she dedicated her entire life to him. She did everything for him. She gave him everything. She risked her future for him, her name, everything. She didn't care. She put it all on the line and went all in for him with this business. She didn't mind that she would have to hurt young kids, young women. She would be separating allegedly kids from their mothers and taking them and kidnapping them allegedly. Like, she didn't care about trafficking humans and selling them and just committing the worst crimes imaginable. She didn't mind any of those things because as long as she had Epstein, as long as at the end of the day she could marry the love of her life, Mr. Epstein, she was going to be completely and totally fulfilled, even though she personally couldn't fulfill him because according to her and the emails that she would send, she knew that she wasn't enough to satisfy him. So what was she going to do? What could she possibly do to make her man happy? Oh, get young girls for him? Fine. You know what? If that's what she had to do, she said she's going to grin and bear it, and she's just going to do it. Because you know what? She was so understanding. She said, "I am the most understanding woman on all of this God's green earth because I'm so in love with this man. I just want to see him happy and satisfied. And for some reason, he's not. And you know why? I think he has a medical condition. I think he's just like such a genius and he has such a weird, strange condition where like he needs to be satisfied like 5 times a day, like just 5 times. It's crazy. It's too much. Like she said, I can't handle the demand. The demand is like way above me. So I am going to actually do something for myself so that I don't have to be stressed out to, entertain this man all day. I'm going to get him some young women just like he likes, and he can, satisfy himself and be fine. And his medical kink, his medical quirk could be fulfilled because, yeah, it's just obviously not up to him. It's obviously a medical condition that he has, and I am a caring person and I love him. So I'm going to help him with his medical condition and make sure that I can get as many girls as I can find, even if that means that I have to get in my car and drive down the road and look out of my window and spot a random young girl walking down the street, even if it means that I have to park next to her and say, "Hey girl, come here. Do you want to do X, Y, and B? I'll give you some money, la 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 la." Even if it means that I have to do all of that, I'll do it. I'll do it just for Epstein because I love him. Because he is amazing. He is the most incredible person. And besides his like weird little medical quirk that he has, he's amazing besides that. And I totally want to marry him and have a life with him. And I could see it. I could see it. I could see this going on forever. This is so wild. Like, this is like, side note. Hold on. Out of character right now. Let's get out of the Maxwell character because this is like actually so wild. I can't even. What do you mean? How do you like reason this? How could you reason like having a boyfriend and him being like a complete perv? And then you being like, oh, it's actually just a medical condition. Yeah, he has a medical condition, so I'm just gonna get girls for him to be like satisfied and he can leave me alone and I can just focus on loving him for his personality. That is, I can't. Oh my God, that's so weird. Well, this is what was going on though. She said, you know what? These girls mean nothing. They are nothing. They are as good as trash. They are worthless. So I don't care if Epstein, my amazing, sweet boyfriend, does whatever he wants with them just to get off. And then that's it. Like, he disposes of them like what they are, trash. So it doesn't matter to me. He doesn't care for them. He doesn't love them. They don't mean anything to him. So they don't mean anything to me either. They're as good as junk. So whatever. I don't care. It's not a big deal. He gets over it. He moves on and we go on with our day. And he's a great boyfriend. Besides that, of course. And so this is how she reasoned her relationship with Epstein for all of those decades. Maxwell originally met Epstein early 1990s, around like 1991, and they became really close pretty fast. They built their operation together. Epstein literally started it from the ground up with Maxwell. However, around the mid-2000s, that's when we can see Jeffrey Epstein start pulling away from Maxwell. He wants to distance himself from her in a lot of different ways. He starts bringing in young girls and putting them at higher power positions, kind of trying to override Maxwell wherever he could. Maxwell was pretty set on her ways, set on her operation. She knew the way she liked things to be done. And Epstein was trying to push her to the side. So he would bring his new assistants and give them job duties that were originally Maxwell's. And she started to feel sidelined. She was feeling the cold shoulder. She felt like a slave. She even said in emails to Epstein that he was treating her like a slave and she felt like she was just a servant. She was really upset at Jeffrey Epstein around this time because she felt like he was throwing money at young girls while ignoring her contributions to their operation. And she even said that Epstein was treating her like a household servant. But Maxwell didn't feel like just laying down and taking it because she wanted some restitution. She felt like she deserved some type of financial compensation for her work, for her role in managing Epstein's operation. She needed some type of financial benefit because she wasn't doing it for anything. I mean, at first she might have been doing it for the love of Epstein, right? For the hope of one day becoming his future wife. But as the years slowly went by, it was starting to become more and more of a dimmer idea in her brain. That light really just fizzled out in the mid-2000s because Epstein was just getting closer with the young woman and again just pushing her to the side, treating her like trash. And when she started to feel that cold shoulder, she turned. That's when it turned for her. After that flame fizzled out, she said, well, if I'm not doing it for the love of Epstein, then I have to do it for the money because I have to get something out of this. She felt like she put everything on the line for him and now she's being disposed of like a napkin. So yeah, of course, she said, I'm putting my foot down on this one and I'm getting my millions. And Epstein complied. He ended up giving her over $23 million throughout their last and final years together. And in his last will and testimony, he left Maxwell a mere $10 million in his trust. $10 million that he probably knew she was never going to receive, but it was a message. I feel like that 10 million was a big message to Maxwell because, again, as we mentioned in my last video, he left the lion's head to his girlfriend Karina Sholiak and left Maxwell, his biggest co-conspirator, the woman that really just built everything with him brick by brick from the ground up when his operation was dust. She was there to help him make something out of nothing. She really created this operation with him, and he is sending her a message in his last will and testimony by leaving her $10 million in his trust. He's saying, like, you mean pennies to me. You mean nothing to me. Like, at least he left her something, right? But I feel like it is kind of a slap in the face. Like, I'm leaving you something, but you're getting, like, minimum. I'm like, my lawyer is getting more than you. Like, my chauffeur is getting more than you. But I'm gonna leave you something because you were something, kind of, right? Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter anyway because she's not gonna get 10 million. If he left her 100 million, she wouldn't have gotten it anyway. But he knew that. I think that he totally knew that. He just wanted to kind of like rub it in a little bit more. Like, here you go. I'll leave you something, but like, pennies, right? Because I'm giving everything to the Sholiak. Yeah, something tells me that was like Epstein's final spit at Maxwell. There is a document back in 2015 where you could see Maxwell talking to Epstein. During this time, Virginia Giuffre filed a civil defamation lawsuit back in 2015 against Maxwell. And this completely terrified Maxwell. She thought it was going to destroy her social status and trigger a criminal prosecution. And you can see in the Epstein files internal emails between Maxwell and Epstein plotting a very vicious smear campaign against Virginia Giuffre. They wanted to destroy her public image and her credibility. In 2015, there is an email exchange between Epstein and Maxwell where Maxwell is drafting this dossier where she is trashing Giuffre and her image and her credibility. She's even bringing up false claims, unverified claims about Giuffre's family, and she's trying to drag everyone into it just to make it seem like Virginia Giuffre is a crazy lady and she has no idea what she's talking about, and she's trying to make it seem like Virginia Giuffre is simply a liar. Maxwell goes on to send this draft email to Epstein asking him if there is anything else that he would like to add to this character assassination, and she's about to send it off and leak this document to all of the media outlets that will take it, and especially the New York Daily News. So let's take note that even in 2015, Epstein and Maxwell are communicating back and forth. They're trying to trash victims. They're trying to silence victims however they can. If they can't buy them off, then they're going to try to destroy their reputation. They're going to try to make it seem like the victims are not credible, like they're liars, like they're drug abusers, like they're addicts, like they're just in it to get a story out and get some money and get their next fix. Because these people, they're just bad, rotten apples in society. They're meaningless. They're worthless. Like, nothing they say can be held to any kind of credibility or to any kind of honest stance. Like, these people are not honest. These people are complete liars, and they don't deserve anyone to listen to what they're saying. Just look at what their family has said about them. Just look at what they're doing. Like, they don't deserve to have a word. They don't deserve to tell anyone anything that they experience. And if they get abused and victimized, oh well, who knows? Not us, because they're liars. That is what Maxwell would have everyone believe. That's what Epstein would have everyone believe, that all of their victims are literal just crazy liars that are making up stories just to tear down good, honest people, and they're just in it for a buck. They're just in it for their next fix. They don't care about ruining anyone's reputation or about sending good, honest people off to jail for no good reason, right? Like, Epstein and Maxwell really want us to believe that that's the type of people that their victims are. But what's crazy is that, first of of all, most of your victims are underage minors, meaning that what could you possibly say about a child at the time, a child that you were taking advantage of? What could you say that they did wrong? How could they possibly be wrong in a situation where you're an adult with full power and control and are taking advantage of a child, of a kid, of a teenager? How could they possibly be wrong in that situation? How are they being the ones being painted out to be crazy or liars or addicts? Like, they're literal children and teenagers. No way is that going to make any sense at all if you really think about it. What could Epstein and Maxwell say about their victims? Nothing. They were kids. They were children. They were just living their lives. You're the adult over here that's literally taking these kids' lives and destroying their futures. Like, you can't say that these were bad people. They were children. Like, that's so wrong and messed up. How are you going to create and draft this whole dossier assassinating someone's character who wasn't even an adult at the time that you met them? They were a child. That is absolutely insane to me. And you can clearly see that emotions were super, super heightened around this time, because Maxwell, even though she was pulling at straws and pulling at strings, trying to just come up with whatever type of excuse and plot and plan that she can come up with to just try and save herself from this situation, she really was rambling to figure out what she could do, because she was so scared that everything that her and Jeffrey Epstein did up to that point was actually going to be exposed this time, and like for real. Not like in 2006 when it was exposed, but Jeffrey Epstein managed to keep it hidden. For some reason, they felt like this was actually going to be their time. Like in 2015, when victims are actively speaking out about what happened to them when they were children, this is when Maxwell really starts losing it. She just loses the whole plot, and she starts getting paranoid that Epstein is going to hang her out to dry, and she's going to be the one left out there taking the fall for everything while he gets to live on his life. Because to her, he had already signed that non-prosecution agreement. He already had his plea deal. He wasn't going to be prosecuted for those crimes. He was good. He was set. In her eyes, she really was the only one that was like left out there to rot at this point. So at this point in 2015, Maxwell's just trying to gear up, and she's gearing up with anything that she possibly can so that she can have some type of arsenal under her belt to use when her time came, because she just felt it was coming. She felt everything like boiling over. She is trying to extort Epstein. She's telling him, I need money, I need lawyers, I need a team, I need legal staffers and help assistants. We need coordinators to distribute this smear campaign. She was going all out. And it had to be under Epstein's dime, of course. She said, Epstein, I did all of this for you. Now you are paying for all of it. Like, literally, you're going to have to finance my legal fees, because she just couldn't handle it on her own. And as much as she would like to say that she really just distanced herself from Epstein as soon as he got arrested the first time, that's not true. She was begging him for help in 2015 to get money so that she can pay her legal team, so that she can pay her smear campaign people, because she was trying to get away with her crimes. And she knew that only Epstein money could help her out with this one. But Maxwell was able to hold them off for a pretty long time. She got an extra 4 years. After that 2015 interview with Virginia Giuffre, she was able to continue on living her life free from bars for 4 more years. It was only after Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2019 did they come for Maxwell, when she suddenly realized that the federal prosecutors took Epstein and now they're coming for his inner circle, meaning her, first and foremost. She was scrambling at that point, and she wanted to then distance herself from everyone in Epstein's team. Not just Epstein, but she wanted nothing to do with his lawyers or anyone that was attached to him. she tried to completely cut him and anyone connected to him off. She actually went into hiding and abandoned Epstein so that he could face the music all by himself. Like, at that point, she didn't want to testify for him. She didn't want to be part of the defense. She did not want to be part of his case whatsoever. She said, if I'm not part of his case, maybe I won't have a case at all. She said, case, forget it. Nothing to do with the case. She just disappeared. But even though she tried to hide under a rock and do anything she could to cut contact with the world, she was arrested and she was sentenced to 20 years in prison for human trafficking. All throughout 2026, Maxwell's legal team has continuously tried to prevent around 90,000 pages of legal documents from being released to the public. They're calling transparency laws unconstitutional. And during a recent 2026 deposition, Maxwell actually declined to say anything at all. She repeatedly used her Fifth Amendment right and would say nothing. Every time that a question was asked, she would say, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right. And this went on and on and on for like almost every single question. But her lawyer did say that she is willing to expose everything. She's willing to go into detail about what she knows on Epstein's inner circle and his operation, but only if President Donald Trump is willing to give her clemency. In 2015, when victim Virginia Giuffre finally came out and filed a lawsuit against Maxwell, well, internal documents show that things erupted between Epstein and Maxwell. We could see back and forth of them blaming each other for things and them actively ghostwriting public statements that they were going to be putting out into the media, trashing Virginia Giuffre's image and her credibility. And it was Epstein's private account who transmitted a comprehensive finalized media blueprint that was written explicitly in Maxwell's first-person narrative voice. The draft stated that she was a target of false allegations of impropriety and offensive behavior that I abhor and have never ever been party to. But behind that unified public front, things were crumbling behind the scenes between Maxwell and Epstein. Maxwell is seen giving Epstein an ultimatum. She said he either funds a private investigator to dig up dirt on the victims so that she can smear them, or she would hire a private PR firm to completely destroy Epstein's image. Let's take it back to 2006 real quick, because around this time, things were also crumbling around Epstein's inner circle. We know that even Lex Wexner was scrambling during this time, trying to audit his books and trying to regain some type of control over his accounts and his company, alongside with Abigail, his wife. Well, they weren't the only ones struggling and scrambling. Maxwell was also in a panic, as was, of course, Epstein. They were all trying to rack their brains and figure out what they were going to do to hide their assets. So at this point, we can see Maxwell auditing their black books. They engaged in direct email debates regarding whether to completely remove Donald Trump from their active contact list to mitigate exposure as the local criminal investigation was mounting on them. And despite the temporary scrub, subsequent unsealed 2011 emails from Epstein to Maxwell boast that Trump contributed and continued to interact with his circle, claiming that Trump had spent hours at his residence with an individual linked to the network. Maxwell was the elite traffic controller. She would routinely communicate with aliases that were under AACE, and this was through encrypted communication because she didn't want, of course, her elite client list to be exposed, so they would routinely use code names. Another code name for this AACE dude was the Invisible Man. And this is a name that routinely comes up on Epstein's phone list under Prince Andrew's contact information. There were so many allegations that Maxwell just could not escape from. Then there were the two-legged sightseeing emails. In a highly publicized 2002 email exchange ahead of a trip to Peru, Maxwell mapped out the exact itinerary for the Duke, explicitly telling her logistical handler to prepare some sightseeing, some two-legged sightseeing, read intelligent, pretty, fun, and from good families, and he will be very happy. The final straw that broke the camel's back was the financial aspect in their relationship, because at the end, that was really all that was left. The absolute breakdown of their relationship was accelerated by the fact that Maxwell was in deep financial anxiety. See, Maxwell lost her family fortune when her dad died. He was a media tycoon named Robert Maxwell, and she viewed Epstein strictly as her financial lifeline at this time. So when Epstein purchased a Manhattan mansion for Maxwell, he purposely and intentionally kept the underlying mortgage and corporate deeds tied to his own shell companies. He did this to allow him to threaten her and victimize her whenever she would push back against him or any of his corporate operational demands. Then, as Epstein began to funnel tens of thousands, then millions of dollars into Karina Sholiak's life, this totally set off Maxwell. You see, Epstein was funding Karina Sholiak's entire existence. He was building her up brick by brick, literally purchased her acceptance. Then he paid for her tuition every single year. He was right on schedule.
Dr. Karina Sholiak.
What do you mean that's okay? It's not okay. What do you mean that's okay? It's not okay.
And he bought her many properties. He also went as far as to buy her family and Belarus properties. He made sure that not just she was set, Karina Sholiak, but her family in Belarus was also set. They were going to be good, and of course Epstein had total control of that. All of these purchases and investments into Karina Sholiak's life, well, it was very quickly adding up, and Maxwell was taking notice. Maxwell's emails turned very bitter. She openly accused him of erasing her foundational role in building his global network of influence, stating that she was being treated like a disposable household help, while his new recruits were handed the keys to the estate. The Epstein files ultimately reveal that after Karina Sholiak came into the picture in 2009, this triggered a massive toxic shift in the power dynamic between Epstein and Maxwell. Before Sholiak, Maxwell was the uncontested operational matriarch in Epstein's world. But after Sholiak entered the picture, well, everything changed for Maxwell. Emails between Epstein and Maxwell turned bitter, cold, confrontational, and it was so volatile all around. Maxwell was explosive, and she consistently started arguments with Epstein over household authority, and she began a cutthroat battle over who was going to control the estates. When Epstein brought in the 20-year-old Sholiak from Belarus, he completely reorganized his household logistics. At that point, he wanted Sholiak integrated completely into his life, but he needed Maxwell to maintain the properties and to handle the incoming traffic pipelines. This created immediate and severe psychological friction between everyone. Again, this was the triangle of hell. This was the love triangle that no one wants to be a part of. In a 2011 email, you can see Maxwell lashing out at Epstein over Sholiak's growing dominance of the New York and Palm Beach mansions. Maxwell complained that Sholiak, whom she frequently referred to coldly in the emails as the student or your friend, was treating the household staff with disrespect and disrupting the schedule that Maxwell had run for decades. It's even recorded that at first, to try and hide Epstein's true network, he even tried to keep Sholiak from realizing the full dark extent of Maxwell's historical role as a groomer and a former romantic partner of Epstein. He forced a bizarre narrative. In the emails, it's revealed that Epstein forced his staff and Maxwell to act as if Maxwell was merely a distant, eccentric aunt or a platonic domestic manager. Maxwell bitterly resented his forced demotion, even emailing Epstein saying that she hated feeling like an invisible servant in the homes that she helped build. Now cut back to 2015. We've reached a boiling point because Virginia Giuffre, she has come out and filed a defamation lawsuit against Maxwell. This put Maxwell in immense legal jeopardy. For the very first time, Maxwell is really being put up against a wall, and she is scared that this might lead to somewhere really bad for her. At this exact time, Jeffrey Epstein is funding Sholiak's multi-million-dollar Columbia University dental education and putting luxury properties in Sholiak's name. After Maxwell realized that she was being left to take the legal fall while the new girlfriend was getting the fortune, she used the emails to aggressively extort Epstein for money. In 2015, there is a text email exchange with an ultimatum. Maxwell sends a barrage of messages to Epstein demanding millions so that she can pay for her criminal and civil defense. Maxwell specifically told Epstein that the legal storm that she was facing was entirely due to her association with him. In one unsealed exchange, she pressures him by stating that she needed guaranteed independent financial security because she could no longer rely on his future promises. And that's actually so telling right there. Future promises. I feel like he made many future promises to Maxwell, and likely, especially in the beginning, one of those was marriage. She was in love with him, in my opinion. She loved him so much, and she really did risk everything for him and put everything on the line for him. Was she like mentally sick for doing those things? Probably, in my opinion, I believe so. But also, like, she was being influenced by love, or what she thought was love, I guess. But at this point in 2015, when the love is gone and all she has left is the money, she is fighting tooth and nail to get every last bit. Epstein ultimately buckled to her pressure and he gave in. The files show that between 2015 and 2017, Epstein transferred roughly $23 million into Maxwell's private offshore accounts and bought her a luxury townhouse. He paid her off, not out of love, but as a hush money. And we know that because at this point, he just really wanted her to disappear. He wished that everything could disappear and he could just go on and live his happy little life with his happy little operation and Karina Sholiak, the dentist for the children. But at this point, that was not going to be possible. And although he thought it was going to be hush money, it's not very hush now, is it? When we're all talking about it. So oopsies. He also just wanted to make sure that she didn't speak to the FBI or say anything about him. He wanted to make sure that she would stay on his side and not flip on him during the civil depositions. And it was the battle of the inspectors that really got to Maxwell because she loved having these properties and these real estates. And when everything was like literally being stripped away from Maxwell and handed over to Sholiak, that was like Epstein was taking her limbs off of her. Like, seriously, those were her properties, her babies, what she worked so hard for. So it was really hard for Maxwell, and it was like the ultimate insult to her when Epstein began transferring operational control of his real estate portfolio over to Shuliak. Shuliak was given the nickname the Inspector, as we mentioned in the last video, and Epstein's inner circle began to go to her for all types of operational management and questions and answers. She was the go-to. She began auditing household ledgers. The same ledgers that Maxwell would handle and oversee now are being handed to Shuliak for her to look at. And everyone was going to Shuliak. People were literally forgetting about Maxwell, and they were putting her all the way in the back burner. Maxwell was disappearing into the abyss, and she was not happy. And I'm sure she felt pretty freaking dumb at this point. Then in 2016 and in 2017, Shuliak was put in charge of completely auditing and redecorating Epstein's New York townhouse and his New Mexico ranch. And we mentioned all of this in the previous podcast. Shuliak was given the nickname the Inspector by Jeffrey Epstein's inner circle, and she was in charge of auditing all of his properties. Things that Maxwell used to oversee were now being given to Shuliak, and it was her responsibility to audit things and create operational logistics and handle the new recruits that were being brought through all of these properties. Emails between Epstein and his other assistants show Shuliak systematically throwing out furniture, artwork, and organizational systems that Maxwell had put in place for years. And when Maxwell tried to coordinate travel logistics for specific visitors via email, well, Epstein's assistants would reply to her and say that Karina has already adjusted the schedule. And this would effectively lock Maxwell out of any type of inner loop that she once had. Do you understand how butthurt this woman was to be getting locked out of her own castle? She literally built this place. She put everything together, and now Shuliak is coming in, taking her reins and kicking her off. It was so crazy to see exactly how everything went down between these three, because I mean, they really pulled the rug right from under Maxwell. She did not see it coming, and she was left completely in the dark, which honestly, she doesn't deserve any better, but it's just so crazy that all these people are so scummy and they have absolutely no morals or any type of outstanding qualities, like not even to each other will they stay loyal to each other or true or honest to each other. Like, they will literally turn on each other so quickly. It's actually not surprising. The emails show that by late 2018, the relationship between Epstein and Maxwell was completely dead. They had stopped communicating about personal matters entirely, and their emails were strictly handled through intermediary lawyers regarding corporate assets and distributions. When the federal government arrested Epstein in 2019, Maxwell didn't send a single email or text offering support. After she recognized that Epstein's protection was gone, she immediately cut all digital ties with him and his lawyers, and she fled. She even changed her number. She really tried to hide under a rock. Epstein's final email logs show him frantically working with his estate lawyers, Darren Indike and Richard Kahn, to finalize his will. Realizing Maxwell had abandoned him to save herself, Epstein executed his ultimate revenge, which was his drafted 1953 trust. And it was in this 1953 trust where Epstein left his entire fortune, pretty much, to Karina Shuliak and left a mere $10 million to Maxwell. And this is seen as his final FU to Maxwell, because to him, 10 milli is nothing, is pennies, and Maxwell knows this. It's crazy to think that what Jeffrey Epstein said that he left in his 1953 trust was the entirety of his fortune, because this is a man who JP Morgan has stated that billions of dollars were flowing through his accounts. So to say that he just had a few $100 million, I mean, whatever. who knows, to be honest? But it's my opinion that Jeffrey Epstein absolutely hid assets and changed names of properties into Karina Sholiak and other people's names, properties that they have right now and are chilling in, not seized by the government, because he knew how to hide those. Regardless, Jeffrey Epstein is not a stand-up character whatsoever. He literally threw his biggest reason to have this operation under the bus, like as quick as he possibly could. Maxwell helped him build this entire enterprise, this entire operation. He really had her to thank for curating so many women to be trafficked to him and his other elite friends. But he didn't care for her or anyone else. He didn't care for Karina Sholiak. I don't think he ever cared for anyone except for himself. And speaking of, where are Jeffrey Epstein's kids? Because I believe that he had children. Like, come on, just look at his Amazon history purchase. Go to the Epstein files and look at his Amazon history purchases. Baby clothes, baby toys, baby food, baby items. Where are the babies? Who are these babies that you are purchasing all of these things for, like, every single year? Like, a lot of things are being purchased for babies, but Jeffrey Epstein has no babies, right? As far as we know. I don't, like, honestly, I am so sussed about that because I believe that he had many babies, like many, many, many babies, like so many babies. We could see in the Epstein files a diary of an underage girl that was forced. In her own words, she was forced to get pregnant and have multiple babies for Jeffrey Epstein. Some survived, some she unfortunately couldn't carry to term and passed away and weren't born breathing, but some were. Some she carried to full term and birthed and then never saw again. Babies that were taken by Maxwell and disappeared. And you can see all of this because she documented everything, and she documented in a way that was kind of like Morse code. She was scared. She was scared of documenting, of keeping things, because she knew that these people were watching her and controlling her. So obviously she couldn't just flat out say what was happening to her, but it is very clear once you see it. It is very clear to see what exactly it is that she's trying to say. And it is crazy. It's one of the most sickening pieces of evidences I have ever seen in my life. And to know that it is possible that Epstein had so many children and babies, but we don't know anything about them today, right now. Like, they don't exist. They're not documented. I am really scared, and there are just so many questions, guys. There's so many questions that we don't have answers to yet, but I really do hope that we'll find those answers, and we'll find them soon, because there are people speaking out. There are people coming forward every single day and telling us things that we didn't know before. So it's my hope that we'll find out more about these babies, about the children that Epstein possibly fathered, and about these items that were purchased from Amazon for babies and children. Where did they go? Who was using them? That is something we need to know. And I hope we do find that out sometime as soon as possible, because where are these babies now? How old are they? Like, they could be 20 years old right now. They could be 10 years old right now. They could be 5 years old right now. We have no clue. So I really hope we have more answers, because I sure have so many more questions. And I just thank you guys so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know in the comments down below your thoughts and your opinions. I love to hear them and read them so much. Guys, please stay safe. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me today. Bye.